right, we've got, as I said, we've got a few extras to join, but we might make a start because we want to make the best use of your time. I think I've met most people, but my name's Lisa Jane. I'm president of Educators SA, and welcome to our Pl1 session, which is really about applying for a Pl2 grant. Pl2 is just the label that we provide to our grant program to associations. Now, I know I'm joining you from Ghana land this afternoon, and I'm presuming most other people also are. So, as always, nice to recognise that we are on those lands and paying our respects to the elders past, present and emerging.
And I'm on Paramount land.
I was hoping you would do that, Susan. Welcome, Peter. All right, so the purpose of
land, sorry.
I was going to say, Jasmine, you're coming from the furthest away in the Riverland.
A 260 kilometre point I am from Erewhon land. It would be remiss of me not to mention.
Thank you for doing that. So the purpose of tonight really is just for us to have a chat, and we do intend it to be a chat around how the program works and how your association can get involved successfully. So the process we're going to use is Rod's just going to run you through some quick details on a bit of a PowerPoint intended to just give you a quick overview. If they've got any questions as we go through, just let me know and we'll stop and deal with them, because often that's, if you can ask them right at the time, they'll have more meaning. And then again, some more opportunity to chat at the end. So Rod, if I hand over to you, do you want to lead us off? So we've got 3 categories of grants, and so we'll go through each of them separately. Over to you, Rod.
Great, thank you, Lisa Jane. I'll keep an eye on the waiting room for anyone else who might be coming. I'm hoping everyone can see a blue and white slide with Pl2 funding on it.
Yeah,
I'm seeing some heads nodding, but because I can't on my screen, it's gone off onto a side screen. So yeah, if I get confused, I apologise. You'd probably all be aware that traditionally there were only one set of grants available over the last 6 or 8 years, and because of the number of associations that could access that, the board reviewed that the year before last and implemented during 2023 or early in 2023 a system where we had 3 different categories of grants. And after reviewing how that went, they've continued those 3 components for another 12 months at least, and we'll continue to review that. But generally, the feedback received was really good. So I just want to run through with you, and please jump in with questions along the way, or if you've put your hand up, and Lisa Jane will see it if I don't, because we can answer things as we go. The other thing behind this is it's a bit of an information gathering, providing session. I've already given you the guidelines, but I've also sent another copy just in case you couldn't see it. So a lot of that information is here. The other critical thing is all of the applications, the board has deliberately tried to make them as simple as possible and at least onerous. That's not to say the grants are unimportant, they are, but they haven't wanted to add to everyone's workload, but they're all online. So you do need to apply online. And the usual thing with that is if you start an application and then stop partway through and come back to it a few days later, you've got to make sure you log in on the same computer again. Otherwise, SurveyMonkey won't recognise it and you'd have to start again. What we often recommend too is having a look at the questions, doing it in Word and then cutting and pasting the word into the SurveyMonkey. So that's just a bit of a general overview. As I mentioned, there are 3 components, and I'm just trying to figure out, here we go. The first one are the strategic project grants, and as you can see, there are 7 of those up to $3,000 each. Last year there, I think, were 5 of those, and the board's, I guess because of the popularity of those, has increased those now to 7. So we emphasise up to. If you're doing a project that only requires 2,000 or 2,500, put that in. It's not just a grab for money. It's what you need to do your project, but you can go up to $3,000 each. So it tends to be supporting a project that you've really wanted to do or have been talking a lot about, but you don't have the funds to do it. So it's a real opportunity, and innovation in what you're doing is really useful in this. And when we talk about innovation, it doesn't have to be innovative in comparison to what everyone else has been doing. It needs to be innovative for your association. So if you're thinking about the innovative edge, it's for you. Something you haven't tried before, or something you just haven't been able to do without any funding. There's a short online expression of interest for this process. So it really is a really quick written application to write, because the critical part of this is the board will then meet with you and maybe one or two others from your association to give you an opportunity over about a 15-minute slot to talk about what your project is, what you hope to achieve, what the impact on your members is going to be, how it's going to be sustainable, or if it needs to be sustainable. So rather than just making you write out, 3,000 words in an application and miss a key point, this is really a conversation between you and your association and the board to outline what you're really interested in. And I've got to say, I think those went really well last year. And on occasion, some of the applicants realised when they tried to explain it to someone else that they hadn't thought it through as well themselves. So it is useful to think it through. Lisa Jane, jump in at any stage.
Do you want to just pop up your next slide? Because it's got a bit more detail about that.
Yeah, I was just going to that. The Zoom panel process. As I said, 2 to 3 people from your association, roughly 15 minutes. And what we're hoping you do is outline what you plan to do. And why is it important to your members and to your association? Critically, how will you know you've been successful? What are your success factors? What does it look like down the track? How will you use the funds? And what might your funds be? What might your association be contributing, and what other funding sources do you intend to access? And I guess critically, how will your members benefit? So that could be all your members, or it could be a group of members like country members or early career members or whatever. But in that sense, what's the ultimate benefit for a group of or for all your members?
And Rod, perhaps if I can just add, as president, I chair those panels, and we have representatives from our board on each of the 3 categories. And it's just probably important to say, because a panel process sounds a bit formal for those of us who might have had to live in those kind of worlds in our work life. It's really not like that at all. Just consider it your 15 minutes to try and tell us all of your story. And I know last year, by the time some of our associations had finished, we were as excited as they were about the kinds of things that they were planning. So it's really just that chat. It's an opportunity for you to tell us. And it was so much better than the written applications, where they were often really formal, and we had to keep going back to people to try and get a really good sense of what you were wanting to do. Really, you're just telling us your story and how this can help. And I think the other thing that applies to all the 3 categories is Educators SA aim is to help as many people in as many ways as we can. And so I know Rod's point about the budget, one guaranteed way to not be looked upon favourably is just to apply for the amount that you're entitled to, and then kind of not have many details, because then it just looks like you're asking for money rather than having a passionate idea and the notion of that money being able to then help you back. So I think it's just keeping in your head that it's really that kind of approach that we're taking, that it's a support mechanism. It's the way that we can help each other to be able to do our business well.
Absolutely. In fact, the use of the term panel is probably a bad one, because you're actually just talking to a group of association colleagues, and they're as interested in learning as much from your thinking as they are in the process of approving applications. Keep going.
Do you want to just put up, I think you've got a slide with the ones, successful applicants from 2023.
Yeah. These are, and I haven't captured all that they're on about, but just give you a sense going through there.
And I think when you look at the list, it really highlights what Rod was talking about. Some of the things on this list are innovative for any association, but some of them you might look at and think, well, we do that. Why would that be innovative? But for the particular associations concerned, it was a significant step forward and innovative for them. So it's always about thinking about your story. You're not competing with other people in terms of being the most innovative. You're actually just thinking about what's most important for your association. What have you not been able to do, and what would make the most benefit for your members moving forward? Are there any questions kind of around this strategic projects one?
I think got dates and stuff. Sorry,
Sorry.
are there dates and stuff coming up?
Yeah,
In this
we'll show
slide.
you the dates
Yeah.
at the end. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
That-
essentially not due till we go back to school next year.
Yeah, early
Awesome.
February is the due date.
Awesome. Thank you.
Um,
And the other thing you notice there, and it's not essential because we want to know projects that you're on about, but you'll also notice that a number of these reflect priorities of Educators SA around your early career, connecting with country members, blended so that more people can access it. But as I said, it's not critical, but you can see you know, they're important to all Educators SA members. So a number of those come up in the successful projects.
I think the only thing, Rod, that we haven't covered perhaps is that in this category, like all, well, perhaps the blended learning would be one also, but in this category, you can apply by yourself or you can apply in collaboration with other associations. So that's something else to think about. If you have a group of associations who are on about something and this would assist your collaborations, then that's another way to look at accessing these grants also.
Can they have linked grants, Lisa Jane, like two associations applying together? Is the maximum then 3,000 or is there potential to go?
In the past, we've looked favourably on if you're collaborating with a number of associations and what you need to do requires more than that 3, then you can put in for that and we'll see what we can do. I guess is what, you know, just trying to get the best for everyone from the funds that are available.
Okay, and if you think of a question on this as we move on to the others, come back to it in a while, so we don't have to stick rigidly to the order I've got it in. The next one is the advocacy support grants, and these were really successful for some associations this year. We had lots of feedback at council about 12 months ago about how associations don't always feel confident in advocating for their particular area. So we've run 2 courses. We've had Dr. Amy Graham working with us, and that's why the board looked at how it could give some grants to those associations that really wanted to up their advocacy support grants. And as you can see, there are 5 of up to $1,200 each. And the purpose of this is to either develop your own advocacy plan or train your committee or both. Essentially what this does is it's not a, I'll come back to you in a second, Peter. It's not a cash grant. These are where you can purchase essentially the equivalent amount of time from someone like Amy Graham to work with you and your committee to get up a plan that's going to work for you into the future. So essentially it provides you access to expertise at no cost. So it's not a direct support. And it is a 500-word online application, which I'll show you in just a minute. Just go to Peter, who had his hand up with a question.
Yeah, at a national level, we're looking at developing a whole lot of statements to help with advocacy. But the big barrier there is the creation of time to be able to construct those. Would that fit with something that actually paying to help hire people to create some of those resources? Would that fit within that grant application?
You want me to respond to that, Lisa Jane?
It depends on what you mean. So it's not provided as funding. So it's not a cash grant, can't be used to employ anyone else other than the Educators SA advocacy person, who at this point is Dr. Amy Graham. But that is in fact what she's done for several of our associations. In terms of help them develop those messages and collateral around that. So
okay, so it's paying for her time to work with the associations.
Correct.
Correct.
And you're in control of how people have used that really differently in lots of different ways. But it's that in-kind grant, and that's really about ensuring that our advocacy messages remain consistent in terms of the approaches. The only other kind of query that came up with that, Peter, is that because these grants come from the minister, they have to be seen to benefit South Australian educators. And so if you were writing for that, I would be writing it in terms of that it's about your South Australian advocacy messages to ensure that, because we can't go outside the bounds of the minister's criteria as well. So it's why things like in the strategic projects grant, we often get people talking about wanting funds to run national conferences, that kind of thing. That's really tricky for us, not possible under the constraints of the minister's grant, because it has to serve South Australian educators because it's South Australian money.
I've just got a question there. Feeling a bit stupid about this, but
There's no stupid question, Rachel. Go for it.
So SACE, that's taught in NT as well, isn't it?
Yes.
So does that include the NT?
Yeah, look, we have because that's been considered to be part of the South Australian education more broadly. We have had applications over the last 15 years that have certainly fallen into that. So,
right. Another really quick question, which is unrelated. Is there like an equivalent SACE board for the NT, or is the SACE board it for them too?
My understanding is the SACE board is it for them.
For them as well, which is why it fits neatly.
Yep, beautiful. Thank you.
And the reason why we've chosen Amy is not just availability. She's a researcher. She can do the research, but she's also worked in political office. So one of the things we've found with the the associations that have been involved so far is they find we're really good as educators at expressing what we're passionate about. But when we say it, other educators get it. But people who aren't educators don't always get the intensity or the full understanding of it. So it is about translating your message into really simple, and I'm not suggesting politicians are simple, but just really simple, clear ways of expressing what's really critical. The other thing that's been really important is that when they've come up with their key messages, their key targets they want to get across, every member of their committee or board has been able to use that same line. So whoever approaches anyone gets the same message, and often in the past has been contrast. One of the good examples is AATD, the Association of Teachers of the Deaf, have been involved in the training and also the grant. And they used it around the cochlear implant investigation, and they were key players in getting a result about that. And it was a real success story for something that they saw as really important to advocate on behalf of their members and the children who are impacted on that. So there are some really good stories that have come out of it. Sorry, Lisa Jane.
No, Rod, can I just add, because I think the examples you've given there are about advocating to politicians or groups beyond, but we also had, I'm thinking whether it was one or two last year, I know of at least one last year where actually it was about advocating to educators for your association. So advocacy doesn't always have to be in that political sphere. It depends on what's really important to your association. Again, Rod, do you want to flip the next one up just in terms of
this is
the kind of questions? Yeah,
the questions are pretty straightforward and they're meant to be simple. Obviously, the first ones are pretty straightforward. The first three are just information. The fourth one's really important. We're just asking you to tick a box that you've got committee or board supports this application. The reason for that is over the years, an enthusiastic board member or committee member has put in an application, and then when we've gone to and then left and we've gone to the committee, they say, well, we really don't know anything about it. So it's really important for a grant like this for your whole committee to be on board or the committee to understand and support it. Hence the reason for that.
Susan, we'll come to you.
Brief outline of your proposed project. Obviously, it's obvious questions. How this is going to enable you to have an effective advocacy strategy, how you're going to utilise it, and that sense of once it's completed, are you prepared to share your experiences with others? So we're looking at having like a Pl2 sharing session, like at one of our Pl1 sessions, where people can talk about what they've done, what worked, and often what didn't work is as valuable as what did work. Susan?
I just was wondering, like with the that type of grant for the expertise for advocacy, could you put in like a strategic project grant that is aligned with an application for an advocacy? Can you put in Pl2 that are connected to each other?
The short answer to that would be yes. There are no rules about not being able to apply for grants in different sections. In fact, last year we did have some associations who applied in each category. And in the past, we've had associations apply and win in multiple categories. I guess it would just need, again, it's all just about how it stands up and where that purpose fits across the board. So, but in general principle, nothing that would prohibit that at all, Susan.
Yep, there were associations that were successful in more than one category last year. Good question. So I'll move on to the third one, which is the blended professional learning grants. And this was just an opportunity that our board invested in some blended learning equipment, which we hire out basically at cost recovery, but it's pretty expensive equipment to purchase. So that's why your hire out costs are reasonably high, but very useful. And these are grants of up to $2,000. Now that can involve the hire equipment, but the training of the equipment and use of it, but also it can provide for our staff to be there to support the event and to manage the equipment on your behalf as well. So again, it doesn't have to go up to $2,000. It's depending on what you're running, but that's the quantum it can go up to support what you're doing. Similar application to the last one, and again, it's not a financial grant, but it's used for the hire of equipment, personnel, and training. It's not for things like, and because of the limitations, any of you who have been to council would have seen what we've got. It's multiple speakers that are available on your tables, so people can interact online and in the room. And it also is a camera which you set up close to the presenter. So if you're looking for equipment that's multiple breakout rooms, it doesn't do that. If you've got presenters who are going to roam all over the stage everywhere, it's almost impossible to pick that. It's doable, but you will need someone moving the camera manually. I'm doing that, but you can't see. And if you're looking for high quality professional camera equipment, this isn't it either, but it is fantastic equipment for things like meetings, AGMs and professional learning events, particularly where you've got a speaker that's at a lectern or pretty stable, and you can put a table pretty much in front of them so we can set up the event and have the operator there. So, if you're looking at a massive breakout room conference, this isn't the equipment for you. But if you're looking at having a guest speaker over to run a day for you, or run meetings, or engage country members in some event, then it works really, really well. It's been fantastic for us for our council meetings. We've actually learned a lot along the way, and that's why the training by our staff is really useful, because they can let you into all the insights and how to use it, what worked, what feedback we've got, what the online experience feels like for the people who are online. Susan?
And just before we head to Susan, I think the thing that we learnt, because this was the first year that we Educators SA offered these grants, I think some people when they got them thought it just meant you got the equipment, but it's actually our people that the people who got these grants have really found useful, because the purpose from our strategically from the EdSA board is really this idea about building up everyone's skills and capacities. So we bought the equipment, it's sitting there, but we weren't getting a lot of people actually choosing to hire it or access it. And so this blended learning grants is really about making sure that those associations who want to do that are able to feel that they have both the capacity and the equipment to be able to put it in place.
And it's also deliberate, because we, one of our key priorities is engaging with country members. So it's a deliberate strategy to enable you to even better engage with your members. Susan?
When it says it's not for multiple breakout rooms, I just wanted to clarify, is it available for multiple online breakout rooms, but not actual, physical breakout? Absolutely.
It runs with any platform. We obviously use it with Zoom. So within that, you can set up as many breakout rooms as you can, but your camera work amongst those breakout rooms is, of course, built within Zoom. But when you come back together, your camera, for everyone online, the camera is what they see, whatever the camera's facing. But you can use all the functionality of Zoom or Teams while you're using it.
Thanks.
And as I said, you can follow people around with it, but you're going to have a physical body following them around. It's really fantastic equipment, but it's it's not a professional level video quality equipment with multiple sound inputs and all of those sort of things. So I say that not to put you off, but just to show the limitations. So if you've got an event that fits within those sort of meetings, AGMs, professional learnings, guest speakers, all of those sort of things, that's fine. And the other thing you can do if you're running a conference, you can use it to do the keynote speaker, but you can also then use it to do one of the breakout rooms. So if you had a seminar session and smaller breakout rooms, you could be filming the seminar session and people could join in that. But obviously, because there's one of them, you can't have multiple in different rooms.
And before I think Kate had a question. I think a good example this year would be PDA, Preschool Directors Association. They had a guest speaker from interstate. They used it successfully for a half-day session where everyone's listening to the speaker, but then just when people in the room headed into discussion groups, people online headed into breakout rooms. And it was a really smooth transition, and the feedback from participants about the experience was really positive. Kate, your question?
I was thinking about if there is a mainly an inside day of learning with different presenters standing at a lectern, but what about if there's a session with a presenter outside as part of the day?
Yeah. The first one there, if you're having a series of presenters, works fine for them.
Yeah.
Because you can just, they're one after the other rather than at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest problem we've experienced with it, and that's not the equipment fault or the operators, has been where things like internet's gone down.
Right.
So that's been beyond our control.
Yeah.
So outside, the only two issues with outside would be lighting. So obviously you'd need to position the camera so it doesn't have glare in it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the use of speakers could be a bit problematic because of all the background noise and being able to put them on tables.
Yeah.
And the internet. Now,
Yeah.
if you could tick off all those boxes, you can use it anywhere.
Yeah.
But you need to make sure the lighting conditions, the sound conditions, and the internet conditions were right to make it work.
Okay. Thank you.
Not a problem. You can see the questions there are very similar to the advocacy grant, and because the committee is seeking that sort of information. And again, they're not looking for volumes of information. They're really looking to get to the heart of what you're on about, what you want to achieve, how you're going to use it. And again, that bit at the end about whether you're comfortable to share your experiences. And I can remember some of you would have been at council a few years ago when I think one of our associations shared a project from Pl2 project that went wrong, and it was a 5-minute sharing. It went for about half an hour because everyone in the room learned so much from it. It was absolutely fantastic.
Thanks, Garby.
It was Garby, yeah, but even though it wasn't as successful as they wanted, the learnings coming out of it were just fantastic. Moving on, the timeline is applications are due in by the 9th of February. And after that, we wanted to give you lots of time and to have a bit of a holiday break. After that, the panel wants to get onto it pretty quickly. So we just need time to collate all the applications, check with anyone in terms of any missing information, and then the interviews will commence on the 19th. They'll be the Zoom ones, the 15-minute ones, and I'd be contacting you and to arrange a time that would suit your association to be able to do that. That's for those strategic project grants. For the others, the panel will work through. What we're hoping is that applicants will be notified on the 26th of February. So with that timeline, we've tried to balance out not eating into your holiday time with getting the money to you as soon as possible or as early as we could in the year.
And Brod, we probably need to change that to chats commence for project grants rather than.
Yeah. I think
I don't really want to interview anyone, but yes.
they were. I'm not on the panel, but I act as executive to the panel, so I sit in on all of them and take notes. I've got to say they were great. All of them were great to listen to and hear what people were trying to do. So it is a chat.
So what are people thinking? Any other has that given you a bit of a sense of the 3 different grants that are available, and how the application processes would operate? And now the timeline's clear. Any other questions that people had that have already come to mind? Deanne?
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you say one of the things with the Pl2 funding, that it supports a project you have or are planning to implement. So if you've actually been working on a project and now you want to implement it more broadly in regional areas, can that be so an implementation project of a project that's completed? Does that fit within that?
So I think it depends. It is unusual. So I think it says in the guideline books, it's unusual for us to fund the same project 2 years consecutively.
Yeah.
And simply because we have 62 associations and a limited grant budget. So in principle, you know, if you've been working on something and you want to extend it, and that would not be possible without funding, that definitely is the kind of thing we're talking about. But it is unusual. There would need to be something significantly different about it, I guess.
Okay.
So I can think of, again, I can think of some examples where we have done that, so one in particular would be about 8 years ago, I think, where an association had produced a whole pile of resources, but it was so successful, it blossomed into this professional learning network country thing. So that was what they applied for, and they actually got that for the second one because it was significantly different from their first kind of story. So generally we always say put in your best idea, and then see where we go from there.
Okay. Excellent.
Any other questions? Thanks for Peter's comment in the chat box about just finding the guidelines useful. So that's great.
From here, what we'll do is we'll put the PowerPoint that we've been showing you up on our website. The guidelines will be there, and also for anyone who wasn't able to attend, we'll put the video of this session up there as well, so that they can access the information. But if you've got a question at any stage, please drop me an email or give me a ring, and we can answer at any stage. One of the reasons it's good not being on the panel is that I can, you know, I'm not judging applications anyway, so I'm very happy to talk through with you and, you know, provide the best advice I can. But obviously, what I can't tell you is that whether it'll be successful or not. Just you know, components against the guidelines, whether you're meeting the questions, whether you're meeting, you know, the expectations of the guidelines, etc., is the sort of advice or support I can provide.
And I guess the other thing's just to, you know, let your minds go wild. It's that whole idea about what's normally possible, what might just a small cash grant help you be able to imagine doing with and for your association members, is really what we're asking people to have a think about and what works best for you. So it looks like tea, relaxing at home, settling down with either a hot or cold drink, whatever it does for you, is looking in week 8 like what you all need to do right now. So thank you so much for making time. We just find it's really important to give access to the information. So I really appreciate the fact that you gave up your time to participate. And we'll look forward to hopefully seeing lots of you put in some applications in February. Until then, please make use of Rod's help. And we'll look forward, hopefully, again, to seeing most of you at the Celebration of Educators in week 10. Okay? Have a great night, people.